along with some other items. So we're sending a recording out today. If anyone misses the webinar, they can watch it later today, or maybe when they return from Thanksgiving break. If you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat in Teams, or if you want to save them to the end and ask, you can unmute yourself and ask them at the end of the presentation. Here's our best for all promise to set all students on a path to success around academics, student readiness, and educators. In the upcoming slides, I will be covering the items listed here on the agenda and those from allowable use of funds, the pre-approval forms, a lot of things that we need to receive prior to reimbursement request, and we will be going through the reimbursement timeline as well as the reimbursement form. So you guys will be able to see that today. The ESA program provides additional choices to Tennessee families who are zoned to attend schools in the Memphis-Shelby County school system, as well as the Metro Nashville Public School. The program is funded by using state and local funds for educational expenses in participating non-public schools. Excuse me. So allowable use of funds. I know many of us have seen this several times, but these ESA funds can be used for the fees listed here on the slide for all participating schools. If you'd like to see a full description of these or in greater detail, they are listed in the school handbook that's located on the ESA website. And I will be providing the website at the end and all the resources for you to review or click on. ESA use of funds for non-participating Category 1, 2, or 3 schools are limited to the fees that you see here. The ones that you automatically recognize that are not available for non-participating schools are tuition, textbooks, and uniforms. However, again, if you would like to see a full description of these in greater detail, they are located in the school handbook that is located on our website, the ESA website. So, excuse me. So in order for schools to receive reimbursement from the department, the following items listed here must be completed. So the first one is the contract between the school and the department must be signed and returned to me via email. And this is my email address listed here on the page, on the screen. The second is the verification of student enrollment information from the schools must be submitted to the ESA team. And that email address is the esa.questions@tn.gov that you see here. And what's included in that enrollment form is key. Obviously, we need the student name, we need the enrollment date, the date of birth, the grade, but it's very important that we have that itemized list of fees because that really plays an important part into the third item on this screen, which is the pre-approval expense form. These are submitted by the account holder, which is the parent or the guardian, and they must align with the fees provided by the schools. So we will talk more about the pre-approval forms on the next couple pages. So the pre-approval expense form is emailed from the ESA team to the account holder. And this is to provide details on how the student's ESA scholarship will be spent. And this form is submitted to and emailed to the account holder because they are the ultimate decision maker on how the ESA scholarships are expended. So once the pre-approval form has been reviewed and approved, the schools will receive that final data. And we have been sending these to each school. They've been receiving a spreadsheet that includes the list of the final approved forms and the details of expenses for each student. And we will continue to provide these updates until all these are approved. And you guys have been doing a great job in reviewing these, but please continue to review these and reach out if you have any questions or concerns for any student, or maybe a student that you feel like should be on there that's not. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. And as you can see, SB rule is that we have to have pre-approved expenses. And so all fees must be included on that approval form in order for the schools to receive reimbursement. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, the account holder is the ultimate decision maker on how the scholarship is expended. However, we realize how important it is for schools to connect with the account holder to ensure that the pre-approval form aligns with the expenses from the school. Obviously, we've got to make sure they're aligned, because the expenses from the school are what's they're going to be submitted. I'm sorry, I'm getting tied up here. So pre-approval forms must align with the expenses the school plans to submit for reimbursement. So we have asked families to connect with the schools to verify that their fees are correct if they're unsure. For example, families may need verifying the correct amounts, especially if they have the ESA program and financial aid received by the schools. They may need assistance determining how those expenditures need to be detailed out. There could be additional educational services available that families aren't aware of, like after-school programs or tutoring. Mentioning after-school programs, obviously, I just want to iterate that the after-school programs do have to be instructional based. So it does not provide childcare. So we've gotten some of those on the pre-approval forms. So we all just want the best of use of funds for the ESA scholarship, and we realize how important it is for you guys to communicate and help these families as much as us in this process. And we do appreciate all the work that you've done and put forth in doing that. And I want to say the pre-approval forms definitely have gotten much, much better. And we've worked with the families. Like I said, and you guys have worked with the families. We've communicated with the schools as well. But we are still seeing a few issues. We are still seeing application fees on the reimbursement. I mean, the pre-approval forms. We're seeing, application fees, we're seeing enrollment fees and supply fees, and these are not allowable expenses under the ESA program. And I also want to touch on how important it is that we have the breakdown of fees. So if you have a textbook fee, we have to know exactly what that textbook fee is. If you have a technology fee, we have to know what that technology fee is. So they can't be like a roll up of funds altogether. They have to be itemized. And I'm sorry. So it's important that they're itemized and shared with families and stated accurately on the student enrollment letter to ensure that they included correct amounts on the pre-approval form. So while, excuse me, guys, I keep coughing. While reviewing the pre-approval forms, we are verifying that student fees charged to the ESA are the same fees that are being charged to all other students, as well as we want to, that all expenses are allowed and accurate. And again, thank you for helping with the pre-approval forms. These have gotten significantly better along the way. But again, please reach out if you have any questions or concerns about the breakdown of those fees. Now on more to the reimbursement. This is the reimbursement timeline. It's going to show when the percentage of the scholarship that's available, as well as the next steps. As you can see, we have 4 quarters. Quarter 1 ending September 30th, quarter 2, December 30th, and so on and so on. For quarter 1, you can see the percentage that the scholarship award that's available is 70%. these percentages are based on the total of the scholarship award for each student. So, for example, if a student has been pre-approved for $7,000 of their award, up to $4,900 of that can be reimbursed in the first quarter. So it is allowing a bulk of the scholarship to be reimbursed in the first quarter. What are the next steps? So we're going to notify you when the pre-approval form is ready, which is today during the webinar. So I will be sending that link to the form so you guys can start submitting your reimbursements. I know you guys have patiently been waiting for that, and thank you for your patience. So we're going to get that to you today. Once you submit the reimbursement form, it will generate an auto-generated email to you to let you know you have submitted and we have received it. Now, the timeline for payment. So once you submit that form, it could take up to 45 calendar days before you receive your payment. With that being said, so once you submit your form for reimbursement, be sure you have the contact person that you want us on the form. There will be a contact information, and be sure that's the contact that we need to communicate, because we're going to reach out to you. The ESA team will reach out to you to let you know if it's approved or if it's returned. And if it is returned for some reason, for example, your reimbursement request amount that you put in is $1,000 and the documentation is not there to support that, you haven't uploaded any documentation or any invoice, then it could be returned. But we're going to let you know exactly what that correction is, and that needs to be addressed. With that being said, you cannot edit the form once it's submitted. So if you need to make corrections, you will have to submit a new reimbursement form. We do encourage you to do that within 5 business days of us emailing you to let you know that what the correction is, just so we want to be sure that we can get that payment to you in a timely manner. We don't want to hold up any disbursements for you guys. Account holders approved for the 22-23 fall enrollment are eligible for the 8192 scholarship. Any student that is enrolled in January in our winter session, January of 2023, will receive half of that scholarship, which is $4,096. And the student enrollment winter application is open now until January the 13th. Again, they will only receive half of the scholarship amount. With that being said, and this goes along with the pre-approval forms that are being submitted, account holders must expend at least 50% of the scholarship every year. So with that being said, obviously, so they can roll over into the next year 50% if the student participates and qualifies again. So again, it's very important to know that these the account holders, when they submit these pre-approval forms, and for the schools to know that they have to at least spend 50%, because we don't want to lose any scholarship. This is a reminder really that families cannot receive payments from the department for this school year. So all payments have to go to the schools. In that case, please ensure that the ESA students are not being charged for fees that the ESA scholarship covers. The intent of the school contract was for the schools to front the funds until reimbursed by the state. I have spoken to many of you about this situation, and we've discussed it and we've resolved a lot of these issues. But if you do have a situation where you do have a parent that's being charged, maybe for tuition or whatever the case might be, please reach out to me if you have one of those individual cases, and we will resolve that issue and get that taken care of. Disbursements will be issued by check or direct deposit. If you, please reach out to me if you're unsure if you have direct deposit through the department, through our financial payment system. I do have a list of those, and I can check that for you. And if you would like information on how to get set up for direct deposit, please let me know. Direct deposit obviously will be faster, and with mailing a check, obviously you would avoid lost check. So if you need that information, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you. Back to reimbursement requests. So all schools will complete a total of 4 reimbursements for the 22-23 school year. So this will include one reimbursement request each quarter for each student. So the date of the expenditures are listed here for each quarter. These are the same dates that I provided in the timeline a few slides ago, and these are also located on the reimbursement form that I'm going to share with you in just a few minutes. So if you have a student, being that there has to be a reimbursement request for each quarter, if you have a student that does not have an expenditure in a quarter, a reimbursement form still needs to be completed. However, this will be super easy. You'll just go in and there will be a section on the form that says, I spent $0 this quarter, which is fine. But this is useful for us to track, and we want to be sure that we receive requests for all students and we're not missing any kind of reimbursement requests, and we want to be sure these are paid in a timely manner. Excuse me. All uploaded invoices and receipts must include the following information listed here. As I mentioned in the timeline, you can request up to 70% of the student's approved amount in quarter one. I feel like this is pretty kind of basic of what's on your typical invoice listed here. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I do want to reiterate though, and remind you guys that all invoices must be dated August 8th or later, according to the school contract. So we can't have invoices that go prior to August the 8th because that is what the contract is dated for. This information as well will be on the reimbursement form, and we are working on a template. You may have your own invoice template at your school. However, we are working on an invoice template to share with you all as well, and I will go ahead and provide that to you guys once I provide the presentation. So we're working on that, and we'll provide that information as well. So hopefully maybe some of you will find that template helpful as well. Okay, so if you see this screen, you are in the correct form for reimbursement because this is what it looks like initially. I'm going to click on the reimbursement form because I just want to show you guys like a preview that you'll have access to today. And I'm not going to bore you with the entire thing, but I just want to show you what it looks like and maybe adjust a few things. Yes. And let's see, and I'll go ahead and I will attach that link as well in the chat. Just 1 second. So, so the ESA reimbursement request. Let's see. So this is what the front page. This when you see this front page, this is basically the guidance really for the reimbursement request. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to read this every time you do a reimbursement request, but certainly the first one that you do, this is a lot of guidance. This is a lot of info that we covered in the presentation. For example, all the what's required in your invoices. Here's your first quarter payment, the percentage of the scholarship award, and so on. So please read this before you submit the reimbursement request because it will be super helpful. Like I said, I'm not going to go through this entire thing with you over the webinar, but if you have questions while you're reading this, please reach out. We'll be glad to help you. I do want to point out that it does have a save and return feature, so you don't have to submit the reimbursement request in one sitting, and it's, however, I do want you to know, so say you complete the whole reimbursement and you upload documentation, the uploaded documentation does not save with this feature. So you can type everything in the fields, but be sure that you're uploading the documentation when you're actually going to submit it. So unfortunately, it does not save the uploads when you choose that feature. Let me scroll down just a minute. Okay. Oh, let me scroll. I know I have to, it's kind of a delay, so I want to make sure you all can see what I see on the screen. So the first section here will be something that you will complete for every student in every reimbursement form. So, and that is your participating school. This is the drop-down box that you'll see for that. So you'll select your school here. The contact information, this is the email, the contact email address information that I was speaking to earlier, that to let you know, hey, your reimbursement approved. This is the contact email address that will go to. This is the student information that will need to be completed. Let me scroll down a little bit. I'm waiting just a minute to make sure y'all can see it. And this is the reimbursement request information that will also need to be completed with each reimbursement request. And the question, did you use ESA funds during this quarter? Obviously, if you did, you're going to select yes. But this is what I was talking about earlier. Because you do need to request for each quarter, whether or not you have expenditures or not for each student, you're going to select no. And at that point, all you have to do is put 0 as your total reimbursement amount here. There is an option for additional comments if you'd like for us to know something additionally. And I'll scroll down. You'll have your assurances. Please make sure you read these because you are certifying this when you sign the form. And at the bottom, basically, is your signature, your date, and this is that save and resume. Oh, save and resume later option, and you'll submit this form. So again, if you don't have any expenditures, it's very short. It's just letting us know for tracking purposes, this student does not have any expenditures at this time. Oh, sorry, I went up too far. Okay, so I want to go back. Hold on, I'm giving it a few minutes so it can catch up. Sorry, I didn't mean to make everybody dizzy this morning. So, however, obviously we are going to have some expenditures for some of these quarters. So then you'll select yes, if that's the case. So which quarter are you seeking reimbursement for? Let's just say we're going to do Q1 right now. This field right here has to be completed with every reimbursement request. And this is the total amount of reimbursement that you're seeking. Rather that, let's just say it's $1,000 because that's easy. And so if I have $1,000 here, I have to ensure that the invoices and the receipts that I have uploaded are equal to that $1,000. So if something's off, then there's going to have to be a correction. So everything that you submit as far as documentation should equal this total reimbursement amount. Okay, so since I've chosen yes, I'm going to see every allowable expense under the ESA program. So, for example, tuition. Did you use ESA funds for participating school tuition fees? I'm going to say, so if I select yes, it's going to give me additional options. I would upload my invoice here or any documentation that we may need to see. Tuition amount, the months in which tuition's covered. And if every one of these have the feature of, do you have another tuition expense? And if yes, you do, you'll select here, and no, if you don't, you won't select that. The textbook fees, same thing. You'll select yes or no if you do not. So this is going to be the same process for all the fees. However, I'm going to go ahead and address this because I know this is going to be a question. I know every private school may handle things a little differently. However, I think the question is going to be, let's say you have tuition, but you also have fees, and you want to know if that can be included on one invoice. Yes, you don't have to have two separate invoices for tuition and textbooks. However, be sure that you have the description and the an itemized detail, a detail of itemized list of these fees and what they're for. So you can't just have one say, hey, this is a miscellaneous fee, or this is a roll up of tuition, textbooks, and technology as one amount. You have to have the itemized detail of each request. Now, with that being said, for example, that I just used, I had tuition and textbooks. I'm using one invoice, which is fine, but I do need all the information on that invoice. So if I select yes here, you will still, there's no way around, it is required upload for each expense fee. Each fee that you have, there's going to be a required upload. So you would need to upload that invoice twice. So if you have one invoice, you would upload it for tuition in the example that I just gave, as well as textbooks. So they do need to be itemized, but you can have one invoice. Just be sure it includes all the necessary information. I'm going to keep going. These are just all the other available fees. We'll do uniforms. Did you use the uniforms? Yes. Again, uploaded fees. What's the name of the store where they were purchased? One store, the date of the purchase, what's the total amount, and so on. So these are all the fees. I'm going to go scroll down a little bit more. This is just some more invoice and receipt reminders. Please, like I said, please read this when you do your first reimbursement request. I do want to go ahead and point out that bank account and credit card statements do not qualify as receipts. That is not a receipt. So those will not be allowed as receipts, just to let you know that. There's this section down here for any additional uploads that you might need. Please feel free to use those, as well as the additional comments and that you may need us to know, or I'd say more documentation is better than not enough. And again, here's the assurance forms that list out. Please read through these. You are certifying these assurances when you're signing the reimbursement form. And please keep a copy of each one of these for your records as well. And you'll date it and you'll submit the form. So that is the reimbursement form. I know that was, kind of a quick overview of that. Okay, let's see. So quick reminders. Note, reimbursements cannot be received until we get a signed contract, enrollment verifications from the schools, and a pre-approved expense form. All expenses must be included on that expense form, or they cannot be reimbursed. And then all documents, including the reimbursement request, must match that total amount that we covered. So again, your reimbursement request is for $1,000. It's got to have the documentation that reflects what that $1,000 is being used for or reimbursed for. These are some ESA resources and contacts. This is our ESA website, and I put school handbook because that's what I was referring to early on in the presentation. This is the link to the pre-approval form. This is the link to the reimbursement form. And this is the email address that many of you have used throughout this process, that many people are behind this email address answering questions. Please feel free to continue to do that. Use that email address. However, if you do have fiscal questions, please reach out to myself or Chad. Our email addresses are listed on here. If you have specific questions about reimbursements, pre-approval forms, please reach out to us and we'll be glad to help you in answering those questions. Okay, so time for questions. And anybody has, and as well as thank you all, for today as well. Okay, so let's see.
So Elizabeth is asking if this process for reimbursement is to the schools is for the 22-23 school year, and then next year the families will be doing this on their own.
Okay, I'm sorry, Chad.
So someone is asking if this reimbursement process to schools is only for this school year, the 22-23 school year, and next year, will the parents be doing this?
Okay, so this is for this school year, with the contract with the schools. We are in the middle of getting a wallet. So this will be hit with the account holders next year, the parents. That is correct. So this is the process for this school year. That is correct.
And then Tina, you were asking if the contract can be added to this chat. What contract are you talking about?
The Cindy said we needed a signed contract to begin this process.
Yes, so that is the school contract.
We've already done that.
Correct.
Okay.
So so if you've already done that, you've already taken care of that step.
Okay.
So there's not an additional one.
Gotcha.
And then Liz is asking, when the form is submitted, are they sent a copy or do they need to print a copy prior to hitting submit? I believe there's an automatic reply that will send them the response. Is correct?
Yes, there is an automatic reply. However, when you submit it, I do recommend that you also keep a copy of that. I mean, you will receive one, but make sure you download it and keep a copy for your records as well. Do we have any more questions? Or any that, Chad, that we may have missed?
There are, let's see. Can parents apply to a school before getting approved?
Well, for this year, that's the case. However, I would say going forward, they can definitely apply to the school.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that. When you're saying getting approved, is that for the ESA program or is that for the pre-approval expenses? Because parents can apply for the ESA program and be approved before they apply to a school. What we encourage is then once they get accepted to a school, then fill out the pre-approval form, because then they'll have the accurate amount of expenses and things like that they will need to request.
And then I'm going to jump in here as well. Good morning, team. So yes, a student can just apply to a school before they apply to the ESA program. However, we really encourage you to be in tight communication with your families. So for example, they apply to your school and then they let you know, hey, we're also applying to the ESA program. The ESA is not guaranteed until they have that approval form in their hand. And so I would really caution against things like, maybe scholarship awards or signing contracts that would be dependent on that student receiving the ESA. So certainly they can apply and you can be working with these families. That's not a problem. Just make sure there's very clear and tight communication around expectations regarding funding, contracts, timelines, etc.
Yeah, so if they got approved in the school, so the time difference between getting the funds actually by the grant versus being here enrolled in the school, would this be covered by the grant? Like if I don't know, if the grant came after 1 month of being actually enrolled in the school, would the expenses be covered for that month they have been in the school?
So for this school year, that is correct. So we've had several students that maybe haven't been approved until October. However, they've been in the schools.
No, I don't think I have any questions.
Basically,
Hey folks, can you make sure you're muted, please? Hey, Ray, we're getting some feedback from your end.
it's just a matter of matching up what we're billing with, making sure our numbers are right. That's what I heard.
Cindy, go ahead and unmute yourself because I just muted the whole chat because we were getting some feedback. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So sorry about that. So for this year, yes. So because you could have a student that's been enrolled and they started October. However, because of the circumstance and the timeline that we received this year, they still receive the 8192 scholarship. So yes, it would still be covered. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And when you mentioned this applies only to this year, means this will change next year. So next year they have to get the get approved before getting enrolled in a school. Is this correct?
They do not have to have the ESA before they enroll in a school. However, if you want a student to use the ESA for your program, that only comes through approval from our department. And so ensuring that you have a plan in case that family doesn't receive the ESA and that you're in close communication with that family is of the utmost importance. And if you have specific questions about your school or your school's timeline against our timeline, feel free to send us an email so that we can make sure that that gets addressed. Cindy, I want to make sure we also answer this question around the spreadsheet and then the uniform piece as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me scroll back up here. Sorry about
So
that.
someone's asking when how often we'll be sending out updated lists of approved students and their approved amounts to the schools.
Okay, so yes, we'll start sending those on a weekly basis. You will only get those if you have an additional approvals. Obviously, we won't see, if you don't get a spreadsheet, it's because you don't have an additional students that have been pre-approved. But we will start doing those on a weekly basis and providing that information to the schools.
Then the next question is, how is the uniform money reimbursed to parents?
Okay, so we've encouraged schools to please, work with families with the uniforms. We have schools that are doing that in different ways. We have a school that is set up with a company, and they actually build the schools for the uniforms for the ESA students. We have some schools that are purchasing the uniforms for the students, and then we have some circumstances right now where the parents have paid for the uniforms. Please, we've asked the parents to work with the schools. If you are willing, please work with those families. And if they can provide the receipts, the detailed receipts of those uniforms, and the schools be willing to reimburse the parent and show the documentation that they've done so on the reimbursement. So, for example, the uniform reimbursement in that circumstance would have the receipts of the itemized receipts of the purchase of uniforms, as well as the proof that the school paid the parent back. And then we could reimburse the school. I know that's a lot of moving parts.
Sorry, Cindy, I didn't mean to cut you off, but to be clear, we do not reimburse parents. If uniforms is something that schools included as a part of what the ESA scholarship is going towards, parents should not have purchased uniforms. The school should have purchased those uniforms for the family. At this time, if you are looking to be reimbursed, the school would have to pay the family back and then provide that proof that you have paid the family back, and then include that proof on your invoice. If that is a specific situation that you need support with, email us directly. And then Connie, yes, families do not need to reapply each year. They need to fill out a renewal document that will come out in the new year, and we will share that with you.
Okay, and if a parent put a certain amount of tuition fees and amount for uniforms and needs to adjust that, as long as it stays within the approved categories and within the overall approved item, is that acceptable? Yes. As long as it's within the approved. So it is a little less, but make sure that the student is still expending at least that 50%. But it can come in as less, but as long as it's pre-approved. Let me go down. So, are unused funds carried over to the next school year? Yes, as long as it doesn't exceed 50% of the scholarship award. Let's see, if a family got approved for this year but didn't use the funds, can they use it next year? 50%, only up to 50%.
So to be clear, they have to use 50% this year in order to maintain their scholarship. So if a student is in private school right now or independent school and doesn't use any of their scholarship, they will lose it. they will not have the scholarship again next year. They must expend 50% this year. Again, if you need support there, we will help you and that family figure out how to expend that 50% of that scholarship.
And thank you guys for these questions. They're good questions. So do we have anything else? I don't want to keep anybody. I know it's Thanksgiving week. Everybody's already on vacation mode.
I mean, we don't have answers about what the wallet will look like next year. As soon as we do, we will share that with you. So again, we are working on an electronic wallet for families, and as soon as we have that information, we will share it.
Any more questions? Yes, so we will share this presentation. Like I said, today I want to make sure that I get the recording for anybody who missed it, as well as the link to the reimbursement form. But I will also get the presentation sent out to you guys as well. Absolutely. And thank you guys again for being here today. I appreciate all the help that you guys and the support that you provide to the families and helping us through this process and being patient through this process. If you have any questions, like Amber said, individually, you have a specific circumstance, please reach out to me or email me, and we'll work through that issue and get it resolved. All right. All right. Well, thank you. Y'all have a great day and have a happy Thanksgiving.